Hi, I'm Kevin Kemp, and this is Kemp Outside, where your inside source for all things outside. So last time on our Learn to Fish series, I did a long video on the different types of spinning rods. And if you are a beginner angler, I highly recommend spinning rods to start. But there are other types of fishing gear that you might want to consider. And so today on Kemp Outside, we're going to go over those things. If you like what you see and you want more tips and tricks on how to go fishing and camping, gear reviews, campsite reviews, we're doing a series now called What's Cooking, where we talk about things to cook at the campsite and how to cook fish and that kind of stuff. Hit that subscribe button. It really helps me out in connecting with you all when I can see who's subscribing, and drop me a note too to see if there's anything that you want me to cover, if you have any questions, or if you just like what I'm doing and want to give me a thumbs up, that's awesome too. So here we go. We're going to get started. Okay, so like I said last time on the Learn to Fish series, we covered the different types of spinning rods. Now, again, this series is for you first-time anglers, people that have never fished before or only fished just a little bit, or maybe you're a mom or dad who wants to take their kid fishing and doesn't know how. This series is for you. We're covering all kinds of things from how to tie a hook on to what are all these different baits and what should I use and like when do I need a bobber, what kind of fishing rod should I have, all that stuff. And we're covering all different types of fishing, whether you're fishing from the beach or the pier at the ocean, or you're fishing on a little lake or pond, or if you're fishing for fishing in the rivers or streams. We're going to cover everything from like trout fishing to bluegill and crappie to bass, walleye, and then your saltwater species from snook, redfish, sea trout to snapper and grouper, mackerel, all that kind of stuff. So we're going to cover a whole bunch of things. So with that, let's get started on the first type of rod. Okay, so for the first rod we're going to start out with the one that we covered in the spinning rod video, and that is the spinning rod. So with a spinning rod, I like these because they're relatively easy to use, but when you're using it, the reel hangs under the rod, so this is the right way to use a spinning reel, not this way, right? And so if you want to reel, these are always set up for me to use my left hand to reel, but you can actually reverse the handle. You just unscrew that knob, put the handle in that side, put the knob on this side, and screw it back down, and then you can reel with your right hand. Spinning rods are set up for a spinning reel, so they have a large first front eyelet, okay? So you can always tell a spinning rod from a casting rod by the type of fishing guides, line guides they have on them. And as they go, they get progressively smaller until you get to the end, the tip, okay? So that is a spinning rod, and we've talked about all the different sizes of spinning rods, and actually there are even bigger spinning rods for big fish and saltwater and that kind of thing. So that's the spinning rod. I highly recommend them. I find them very easy to use, but the fishing rod type that dominates bass fishing is the baitcaster. So the baitcaster is a reel and rod that looks like this. And it sits like this. You reel it with the reel above, so you don't turn it underneath. You always fish with it like that. And you can always tell a casting rod by the guides. Again, most of them, if not all, will have this little trigger grip to hold the that you put your first finger there when you're reeling. But the first guide is a small guide. Okay, so, and they can get smaller as you go down the rod, but they're not nearly as big as the first guide on a spinning reel. And so bass fishermen love this type of setup, and there are even bait casters for saltwater use. I don't particularly use them, but I'm not against them. It's just not It's just not what I've always fished with, so I just don't really feel the need to change. Also, I've gotten used to the way I clean my reels for saltwater, that I don't have to do with freshwater, and so learning a new way to clean bait casters just isn't something that interests me. But if you come from a bass fishing background and you're really comfortable with bait casters and you want to go saltwater fishing for the first time, you can definitely get a saltwater bait caster setup. That's totally up to you. So when you're using a bait caster, oftentimes, actually the majority of the time, I can't even think of a reel that you can interchange the handle. Maybe they do make one, I don't know. But almost all of them are right-handed reels. So it's kind of funny because most of the spinning combo setups you see, the reels are set up for left-handed, and all the bait casters are set up for right-handed. Companies are making reels for left-handed anglers, but I just find that I just use it the way they make it, you know. So I just I always reel with my left hand on a spinning rod, and I always reel with my right hand on a bait caster or a conventional. I do not recommend starting out with a bait caster for one reason and one reason only. If you cast the thing incorrectly, it can make one heck of a mess with fishing line. It's called a bird nest, and basically that's what it looks like. All of the line that's around the spool just kind of comes out into this big, nasty tanglement. And so you have to get used to casting these spools in the reel spin very easily. And if they don't have any tension on them to control them, they can kind of spin out of control and spin faster than the line is flowing through the guides, and then it causes a big mess here at the reel. That's why anglers who use bait casters will keep their thumb, let me see if I can turn it this way, will keep their thumb on the spool of line to control that rate of spin and keep their reel from backlashing. It doesn't take an awful lot of time to get used to it, but I definitely wouldn't throw this into the hands of a kid and say, here, go fishing, who's never fished before. I find that spinning reels are a whole lot easier to use. Again, it's a totally a preference thing. You can find bait casting rods in the same, a lot of the same sizes as the spinning rods, mediums, medium heavies. I've never really seen an ultralight or even light action bait casters. They may exist, I don't really know. I've never used one. But for medium heavy, and then heavy action rods, bait casters are definitely out there and in wide use, especially, like I said, with folks who bass fish in freshwater. The last rod series I want to talk about is kind of a combination of the two. It's called the Spincaster. And the Spincaster is what I recommend for kids who are just starting out. It's what both of my boys started out with, and that is, it looks like this, right? And when I was a kid, we called these push button reels. I don't know why we called them that, other than we would push the button and that's how it casted. But they're actually called Spincasters. And they use the same rod. They use the same rod as the bait caster, so it's a bait casting rod. So there's the trigger, and then you can see the small front guide. This one from Zebco is a 2-piece rod, so that comes in really handy if you're just taking this on a camping trip with you. You can disconnect it and take it with you. Zebco makes these very affordable. This is a 404. Combo, so rod and reel together I think cost me $20. Honestly, I would recommend the Zebco 33 combo. It's a little bit better of a combo. I think it's about a $30 combo. It's just made just a little bit better. But my son, when I bought him and his brother, both of them brand new Zebco 33s, when we adopted them. They came to live with us when they were 10 and 6, and so they hadn't done much fishing, and so I bought them both Zebco 33 combos, and we went to Minnesota to my wife's parents' lake cabin, and my youngest one decided to see if his Zebco 33 combo floats. They do not, and so down to the bottom of the lake it went. We were fishing in about 25, 30 feet of water. There was no getting it back, so anyway, I went out and bought a cheap Zebco 404, and we've had it ever since, which speaks to Zebco. They make a quality product. I wouldn't take this in saltwater. These are not really designed to stand up to the rigors of saltwater, but they are great for catching little bluegill and small bass and things like that. Things that you're going to catch off a dock or off a lake shore or in the pond in your backyard. We rig these up with little balls of bread on a small hook and catch bluegill all day long with these things, and the kids have a blast, and they're relatively easy to use. Typically from Zebco, they come rod, reel, the line, everything. All you have to do is tie on a hook and go. So I highly recommend Zebco if you have a very young kid, I would say 10 or less, who has never done much fishing. And you know, I see adults use these things, and I see them catching fish, and honestly, I see people using them in saltwater. And so they certainly can be used in saltwater. I don't want to say that you can't use them, but I would highly recommend that you clean them really well, because saltwater just has a tendency to destroy anything metal, especially after long periods of exposure. So you want to clean the reel and the guides and anything else metal on the rod or reel. So those are the three types of fishing rods that I would say most people are going to use. Again, there's heavier gear out there, and those can be used for a variety of things. If you're catching big stripers or striped bass, or people who go catfishing, there's specialized rods for catfishing. And then obviously there's surf fishing rods that are my surf caster or my surf fishing rod's about 10 feet long, I think. And then obviously there's the big conventional rod and reels that you would use for like large grouper and sailfish and all that stuff that you would use out in the Gulf or the Atlantic or Pacific Ocean. And we'll go over that stuff at a later date. We'll talk about some of the conventional saltwater gear. I don't actually have any of the big conventional freshwater gear for big catfish or something like that. But I'll see if I have a friend who does, and we'll do a video if I can borrow a couple of rod combos for him, and we can show you how that goes too. So guys, that's pretty much it. Like I said, if you have a kid 10 or less, the Zebco combo, a Zebco 33 or a 404, or really any of their Spincaster combos are good. If you are a brand new angler as an adult and you want to get something for yourself, I highly recommend a spinning rod and reel, either a medium if you're doing mostly freshwater, or a medium heavy if you're doing mostly saltwater. Again, watch that video and that'll help you, kind of figure that out. And then if you are a bass fisherman and you want to tackle bass fishing, or you've had experience using bait casters before, go for it. Let me know how it works, and send me your success stories. I would love to hear and see pictures of your first catch or your kid's first catch. We'll give them a shout out on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. You can send those to me at info@kempoutside.com. By all means, before you're going, if you have any questions, shoot me an email or drop me a message here in the comments. My goal is to make your first fishing trip with your family a success, because if things don't go well, kids aren't going to like it. They're going to get upset, and that's definitely not my goal. My goal is to make it as easy as possible for you guys to go fishing, to have success, and to help your kids develop a love for the outdoors and an appreciation for fish and wildlife. So with that, if you have any questions, or any of you experienced anglers out there, if you have any tips or tricks for fellow outsiders, drop them in the comments, and we'll see you next time on Kemp Outside. Thanks for watching.